I had always loved camping, the tranquility of nature, a break from the chaos of daily life. So when Emily, my girlfriend, suggested we spend our vacation in a secluded forest, I was thrilled. We packed our gear and headed towards what we thought would be a peaceful retreat. The forest was dense and untouched, with towering trees and a serene lake. We set up our tent in a clearing, and as the night fell, we sat by the campfire sharing stories and roasting marshmallows. The stars were bright, and the sound of the forest was like a lullaby. It was perfect until the strange noises started. It began as a faint rustling in the bushes, easy to dismiss as a small animal or the wind. But as the night deepened, the noises grew louder, more distinct. We heard footsteps, heavy and deliberate, circling our campsite. Emily clung to me, her eyes wide with fear. I tried to reassure her, but the truth was, I was scared too. Deciding to investigate, I grabbed a flashlight and moved towards the source of the sounds. Every step I took felt heavy with dread. As I approached the bushes, the footsteps stopped. I shone the flashlight into the darkness, but there was nothing. Just as I was about to turn back, I heard a low, guttural growl from behind me. I spun around, the light revealing a pair of glowing eyes in the darkness. The creature, whatever it was massive, lurking just beyond the reach of the flashlight. I could barely make out its form, but its presence was overwhelming, predatory. I backed away slowly, my heart pounding in my chest. When I returned to the campsite, Emily was gone. In a panic, I called her name, but only the echoes of the forest answered. The fire had died down, leaving me in near darkness. I searched the nearby area, but she was nowhere to be found. That's when I noticed the drag marks leading into the forest and the drops of blood on the ground. I followed the trail, every fiber of my being screaming to run away, but I had to find Emily. The trail led to a cave, its entrance like an open maw. Inside, I found a scene of horror. The walls were lined with what looked like human remains, and in the center, Emily. She was unconscious but alive. I grabbed her and ran, not daring to look back. We didn't stop until we reached our car and drove away from that cursed forest. We reported our encounter to the authorities, but they never found anything. Emily doesn't remember anything from that night, and maybe it's for the best. I can't explain what we saw, but I know we were not alone in that forest. We were being hunted. Since then, I've never gone camping again, and at night when the world is quiet, I sometimes hear that same guttural growl in the distance, a haunting reminder of the terror we escaped. Alone in the wilderness, the idea of camping always seemed like an escape to me, a way to disconnect from the world. But that weekend, what I experienced in the remote woods north of my hometown was a descent into a nightmare that still haunts me. I set up my tent in a small clearing, surrounded by dense, towering pines that seemed to absorb sound, creating an eerie silence. As night fell, a thick fog rolled in, blanketing the forest in a ghostly shroud. I lit a fire, the flickering flames casting long, dancing shadows among the trees. The usual comfort I found in solitude was replaced by an inexplicable sense of unease. It was well past midnight when I first heard it. A faint, distant scream, so surreal that I thought it was my imagination. But then it came again, louder, a human scream filled with terror. My heart raced as I debated whether to investigate or stay put. The screams continued, each one more desperate than the last. Grabbing my flashlight, I ventured into the fog. The screams led me deeper into the forest, the underbrush growing denser, the trees darker. The air felt heavy, as if charged with electricity. I stumbled upon a small, secluded campsite, but it was in disarray. A tent torn open, belongings scattered, and no sign of the camper. The screams had stopped. The silence was suffocating. That's when I saw it. A trail of blood leading away from the campsite, disappearing into the thicket. I followed, each step heavier than the last, the blood trail becoming more copious. My mind raced with horrifying possibilities of what lay ahead. The trail ended at the edge of a steep ravine. At the bottom, I could barely make out a figure unmoving. I yelled down, but there was no response. The descent was too dangerous in the dark. I had to go back for help. But as I turned to leave, I heard it. A low, guttural growl coming from the darkness behind me. I shone my flashlight towards the sound but saw nothing. The growl grew louder, closer. I started to run, panic overtaking me. Branches scratched at my face as I dashed through the forest, the growling always just behind me. I didn't dare look back, fearing what I might see. I reached my campsite, tore down my tent in seconds, and threw everything into my car. As I drove away, the growling faded, but the fear remained. I reported what I found to the authorities, but they never found anyone, neither the source of the screams nor the creature that stalked me. I can't explain what happened in those woods, but I know I'll never return. The terror of that night, the screams, the growling in the darkness, they haunt me. I learned that some places are better left unexplored, and some screams are better left unanswered. The wilderness, once a refuge, now holds a fear I cannot shake.